This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, listen to up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, or give us something to discuss in our new post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture. What I think happened, I don't think I have coronavirus, but what I think happened is that because lockdown level 2 is you're allowed to go out and explore, I think I've just, like, the sicknesses that I would have had anyway at this time of year are finally like, oh my god, thank God the gates are open now. We can climb.
Doors open, boys.
Yeah, exactly. So
Looks like AJ's
symptoms.
back on the menu.
I don't have symptoms of coronavirus, but I did wake up this morning with a slightly throaty thing going on and an ever so slightly runny nose, which kind of feels like it's not going to get any worse, which it hopefully won't. And that's just I would have got this at this point in the year anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You been washing your hands?
Yeah, I've been washing my hands. Yeah.
Yeah? You didn't sound very confident.
I just know that I've certainly, like, when they were like, wash your hands all the time, I was like, I'm going to wash my hands all the time. But as the lockdown went on, I was sort of like, yeah.
I don't really like being told what to do by the government.
No, I'd still wash my hands. I still wash my hands after, like, I go out shopping or
but I'm not gonna brush my teeth.
Yeah, fuck brushing your teeth, fuck washing your hands. All I want to do is pick my nose and eat it.
All right, welcome along to the Cult Popture podcast. If you're just joining us, which of course you are, because this is the start of the episode, this is a podcast. This is called Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast. It's very confusing. But essentially what we do here is we take a often randomly chosen film franchise, we watch all of those films, and then we come back 2 weeks later and we discuss those films for you. So AJ and I have, over the last couple of weeks, we've been watching the Fallen film series, which might not immediately sound familiar to you, like, with that title, because it doesn't feel like it's gained, like, film series status, but it has a Wikipedia page for the franchise, and it's called Fallen on there, but this is referring to the Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, Angel Has Fallen trilogy starring Gerard Butler, where he's like, works for the Secret Service and he protects the president. That's what you probably know about it.
Yeah. What am I going to call this episode? We usually have I might have talked about this before. When naming episodes of Film Franchise Fortnights, I usually go, if it's 2 movies, which we don't do so often anymore, I'll just write both titles in the title. If it's 3 movies, if it's a trilogy, and if it's 4 or more connected films, it's a series, and if it's 4 or more films which have several reboots or whatever, it's just the movies, unless otherwise stated, like, by the series. Like, for example, the Twilight Saga calls itself the Twilight Saga, so I'll comply with that. But the Fallen, I almost want to call this one Olympus / London / Angel Has Fallen trilogy. Yeah. Because otherwise people aren't going to know what the Fallen trilogy is.
Yeah. Olympus, London, and Angel have fallen.
Have fallen? Change them. Yeah. Change one of the words from the title.
We're sort of jumping the gun a bit here. We're going to talk about titles a little bit later on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But first off, tell me, AJ. So this franchise started out in 2013 with Olympus Has Fallen, and what is that film about?
Gerard Butler is the president's best friend, President Benjamin Asher, played by Aaron Eckhart, hot president, the youngest president in America's history, presumably. And
do you want me to fact check that?
Can you, while I stammer through the plot? So they're best friends, and one day, while transporting the president and his family to, like, a party, there's a car accident in their, like, convoy on a bridge in the middle of the snow. And it results in the president's wife dying by falling off the bridge in her car. and Mike Banning, who's Gerard Butler's character, is sort of delegated to desk work for the next 18 months just because the president doesn't seem really that angry at Banning. It's just more like, whenever I see you, I'm reminded that my wife and mother of my child died because you couldn't save her. And then
Yikes.
all of that turns on its head when North Korean terrorists intercept the White House and blow it up, and there's a bunch of clearly innocent people are killed. And some very upsetting scenes, which I was surprised was okay to show in, 2012, 2013?
2013.
When this one came out? Yeah, and it's essentially Die Hard, but instead of a hotel or a motel. Is it a hotel or a motel? And it'd be a hotel.
Yeah, it's
Motels
a plaza.
The plaza. Instead of a plaza, it's the White House, and Gerard Butler's character, Mike Banning, a name they really want to be more iconic than it is. It doesn't really stick in your mind the same way something like John McClane does. He intercepts he goes into the White House to save the president and defeat the North Korean terrorists.
Yeah, man.
Yep, and he does it.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, very good. So, Olympus Has Fallen is referring to, Olympus refers to the White House. You know, they've got all these Secret Service code names for everything. And you know, I think Olympus Has Fallen from memory when the film came out. I didn't really see this anywhere, but it's like Olympus Has Fallen is like what they would say, you know, if this would happen. Right. Though this was what would be said over comms. Also,
that's very American, despite being very Greek.
So after sorry to answer your question, it's been 7 years since this film came out. Aaron Eckhart is now 52, making him 45 at the start of the film, or like when the film was shot. Though that makes him the third youngest president. If he was elected at age 45, which we know that he wasn't really. He would have been slightly younger, but Teddy Roosevelt was 42 and John F. Kennedy was 43.
I reckon it's feasible he could be even with one of them when he was elected. I reckon this extremely feasible thing is feasible. Like, yeah, I know AJ, of course that's feasible.
Yeah, I understand how time works and aging works.
So
what did you think of the film?
How are we? We didn't discuss this beforehand. Are we doing a movie by movie discussion this episode, or a you know, talk about all of them at once discussion? What's the plan?
I was going to do a mix of both.
Okay. Well, how about this?
Start talking about the first one, and I'll interrupt you with my thoughts on the second one.
I'll just follow your lead, as I should have done anyway.
Yeah.
What did I think of this film? Okay. It started off, and I was like, you know what? This isn't that bad. I was like, it's got pretty. I do really like that kind of subgenre of redemption story arc where it's specifically like, I screwed up something that we can never get back, but now I can do something to that is just as good as if I could have saved the situation initially, right? So like The Last of Us is that, because Joel's got a dead daughter and slowly, you know, becomes connected to a young girl who would have been the same age as his daughter.
A living girl.
Yeah. And so it's like, I screwed up saving the president's wife, but now I can save the president's son, which is what I thought the whole movie was going to be until he saves the son about halfway into the adventure. And I was like, this feels like this should be the last thing you do, is save the son. Because then it's just him saving the president, and that felt less authentic to me. I thought by the end of the film, though, I was like, whoa. Like, this is our third trilogy in a row for Film Franchise Fortnights 2020. We did The Expendables and The Mighty Ducks, and now the Fallen series. And all three of those, in their own way, are quite explicitly American and macho.
Yeah.
You know, like the Expendables, while they go to other countries and the two main characters aren't actually American, they still represent the macho values of old American cinema. The Mighty Ducks is an American sports movie, and they represent America and fight other countries' teams. And this is like literally about someone saving the president of the USA in the White House.
Yeah.
And I get it came out in 2013 when cultural kind of collective imagery of the president was someone more akin to Obama. I get why when this came out then you would be like, yeah, cool, it's an American macho movie. This is how America is. But watching this movie in Trumpian days is like, oh my God, like the world has never been less confident in America's abilities to lead and that sort of thing especially during the coronavirus stuff. And so it is wild to see such a unabashedly patriotic, almost propaganda-esque American action film. I understand it wasn't made in this time, but it is crazy to see it, and still a pretty modern recent movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, certainly. I think there'll be more political discourse to look forward to as two Kiwis, who aren't really involved in politics, sort of try and, make best of what we think is going on in the world. So yeah, Olympus Has Fallen. This is it's also, it's worth mentioning as well that in 2013, just a few months after Olympus Has Fallen came out, a film called White House Down came out, which near identical plot by all accounts. I haven't seen White House Down. I don't think you have either.
I haven't, but I've heard it's better.
Yeah. So the kind of general consensus is because both of them are essentially Die Hard in the White House. That's kind of like, you made that observation, and I think most film commentators made that comparison at the time. But by all accounts, so White House Down stars Jamie Foxx as the John McClane or the Mike Banning type, and sorry, did I say Channing? I said Channing Tatum stars as the. I
was like, man, I do not know that. I thought Channing Tatum was in that movie.
Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, Channing Tatum is the everyman hero, and Jamie Foxx is the president.
Fuck yeah. Imagine Jamie Foxx as president.
That'd be cool. And it's directed by Roland Emmerich as well. So that's kind of a more big disastery movie, and by all accounts takes itself less seriously, which is watching Olympus Has Fallen. That was kind of one of the first things I messaged you when I was watching it, and just said, man, this movie, like, this should be filled with one-liners, And I guess because it invites the Die Hard comparison, and that's a very kind of like, it's not lighthearted, but it's very action movie-y, whereas this is like wants to be a drama that just has explosions in it.
Yeah, and I think that problem is what is wrong with this whole trilogy.
It's what's wrong with America.
And yeah, maybe. No, I think that that the first one is like, in the log when they pitched this to whatever studio it produced it,
Millennium Films, I believe.
Yeah, when they pitched it, they would have gone, it's Die Hard in the White House. And that's almost all you have to say.
Yeah.
And that's what sells the first movie, I think, is that's why people would have seen the trailer and gone to see it in the cinemas, is because they go, okay, it's an action movie set in the White House. I haven't seen that before, because this is coming out before White House Down. So maybe, that's interesting enough. And then the sequels go, hey, and that those lovable characters that you liked so much, what if we remove the most interesting thing about the movie, being that it's set in the White House, and put that in different situations? What about that? And it's like, these movies, it's hard, it's a weird thing to say, but they would be like significantly improved if the characters were fun. Like, I'm talking, we haven't talked about Rotten Tomatoes scores yet, but I'm thinking like 20 to 30% higher if Gerard Butler's Mike Banning was replaced with a more charismatic and fun main character to carry through into the sequels.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to talk about Rotten Tomatoes?
Okay.
What do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
42.
49.
Same age as the youngest president. Oh,
okay. No. Sorry. But replace that with what is apparently a more charming kind of lead in White House Down, and you get 51%, which is what White House Down has, if you were wondering.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, so let's just move on to London Has Fallen. We'll go a quick overview of what that's about. So that came out 3 years later. This is another franchise where it's just nice, neat 3-year gaps. 2013, 2016, 2019. So London Has Fallen, directed by Babak Najafi. The first one, sorry, I don't think I said it was directed by Antoine Fuqua, who also did the Magnificent Seven remake that we covered. So what is London Has Fallen about?
So a world leader is killed in the Middle East, right? I forget who it is.
Yeah, somewhere in Fuckheadistan, I think it's called.
Oh my god. Let's talk about that after I do the plot. So a world leader is killed, and his funeral is in London, where all the world leaders of the Western world are asked to come and, pay their respects at this funeral. So they all go there, including the president of the United States. And then it turns out it's a big fucking plan and a big terrorist attack, and the London police force is compromised. And so almost all the world leaders are killed except for the president of the USA and Mike Banning, who protects him. And it's sort of them navigating a terror-ravaged London to get to like a safe house. What's this one got on Rotten Tomatoes?
What would you guess?
It's like 20 something.
20. Do you want to go at a guess at the
21?
27.
27. This is the worst one in the trilogy, and
easily.
One of the more recent racist movies I've ever seen. Like, you expect this kind of shit in, Breakfast at Tiffany's, or even something like...
I don't know if I expected the amount of racism I got in Breakfast at Tiffany's when I put it on.
Okay, but like, we are... So 2016, we are like enough past
months
9/11.
Away from electing Trump.
Yeah, and we're far enough past 9/11 where the cultural conversation is kind of like understanding Islamophobia is also a problem, right?
Yeah.
And yet, like you said before, without context, which I've been ever since you said it, I've been like, we've really got to put context to what you said, Richard. Before,
and now you're just stalling.
So there's a part in the film where Gerard Butler's Mike Banning has like taken down one of the henchmen, and the villains in the first one are North Korean. The villains in the second one are Middle Eastern. I can't remember where they're from. And neither could Gerard Butler's character, apparently, because
it's Pakistan, I believe.
Right, so he literally says the main character, the protagonist in a 2016 movie, has a terrorist at gunpoint and says something to the something like, go back to Fuckheadistan or wherever you're from. Like something which sounds like just a plain, straight out racist thing that like a racist person would yell at a Middle Eastern person. And he says it in the film. I had to look it up because I was like, he did not say Fuckheadistan.
You're like, there must be a real place.
Not
Surely
a real
they wouldn't just make this up.
No, I was like, there's no way a movie this recent would have actually used that term. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's so London Has Fallen has got a lot of criticism when it came out for being effortlessly racist.
Wow.
And it's very Islamophobic, as you mentioned, and so it also it's a Variety described it as a terror-sploitation film, which is designed to spread fear after the November 2015 Paris attacks. And so it's like, and also the trailer came out like the day of or like around the time of the 10th anniversary of the London underground bombings.
Wow. That's insane.
And so it was like, yeah, it was very it came across as tone deaf when it came out, and so obviously we picked up on that. But yeah,
there's a point at the end where he's fighting the main terrorist bad guy, and I can't remember the quote exactly, and I don't remember enough buzzwords in it to look it up. But he essentially says to the villain, you people like you, like assholes like you, are always criticizing us as in Americans, but you know what? In 100 years, we'll still be here. And this is as he's fighting someone from like literally one of the oldest nations.
I think he says. I think it's in 1,000 years, is it?
It's something which is not only probably incorrect, but is like so I want to say so American, and I apologize to American fans of the show who are like, come on, man, we're not all like that. I get that, but I'm talking about like the macho bravado Murica kind of thing, where like it's so entitled. It's so entitled to think that your way of life is better because you think it's going to be around longer than something like Middle East.
Well, I think for me, I think the difference between the first and the second is like the first is pro Murica. Whereas the second is like it's anti-Islam first and pro-America second.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, it's a little cheesy coming from someone, in New Zealand, and especially when we're a famously humble people. But watching this like super pro-America film that takes itself super seriously because America's the most serious thing that's ever happened, and the president is the most important person in the universe. And it's like there's almost a place for that, I think. Like,
right,
yeah, you should be allowed to be proud of who you are and where you're from and whatever. But it's when you come to the second one and it's more about like talking shit about other people. Like it's hurting others to lift yourself up, and that's kind of when it gets a little bit like ugh, for me. And like apparently, so the original one was like they made a conscious choice to not make the villains like Middle Eastern or Russian, because it's boring. We've seen it before. And Antoine Fuqua said, like, yeah, we've seen this a million times. It doesn't interest me. But the idea of North Korea is because they're so secluded from the rest of the world that no one actually really knows what they're capable of. And so it's like, yeah, that. And then apparently he read the script for the second one and was like, this is shit. I don't want to direct it.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So, yeah.
One thing that I thought was, and this is on the same topic we're sort of talking about, that's real interesting, is that in all three films, valid criticisms are leveled at, delivered by the villains at the president or American characters, right? Like the North Koreans in the first film say something about like the war profiteering that apparently President Asher is guilty of, and the in London Has Fallen, the villain is talking to Morgan Freeman, who's also in these movies, as he's Speaker of the House in the first one, Vice President in the second one, and then the new president in the third one. And he says to him, he essentially says, you guys in America are so used to associating war with these dusty, deserty, forgotten countries and not somewhere like London, which is, a Western pillar. And it's a good point that, like, man, that is such a sad thing that, like, when we think of war, we think of what people in the Middle East just think of as their home. And I was like, that's a good point. But I'll exempt the third one from this. But in both the first and second one, you think when this gets brought up, you think, oh, so they're going to be they're actually making this almost complex, like they're going to acknowledge that there's evil on both sides. But then in both the first and second one, a line is delivered or a belief is expressed that's essentially, yeah, but you guys are way worse. You I think in the second one of them's like, don't justify your craziness, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, I'm not at all saying acts of terror are a justification, but it's like, or are justified, but it's like, yeah, but you can't just say, no, you're worse. And that's literally all the movie bothers to do. Like, there's I feel like a more complex movie would have someone like President Asher be quite affected by the realities of what's been leveled at him, and he'll be like, okay, I'm going to change things. But there's not really any indication of that. The third one is all about how the army, the American military, kind of the lost sons of war, right? Like we send our boys to war and they come back and they're changed forever. And that one does kind of, it's kind of vaguely pro-therapy, then also kind of anti-therapy at the end.
Yeah.
And in a way...
Should we talk about the third one?
Yeah. I just want to say, I don't know if it almost manages to remove that commentary from being an American flaw at the same time as mentioning it, which is weird. Yeah.
Okay, so the third one, Angel Has Fallen, 2019. At the time of recording, is the most recent film we've covered on Film Franchise Fortnights. So it was directed by Rick Roman Waugh, W-A-U-G-H. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And what's this one about?
So this one is... this is my favorite one, I think.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so this one was about Mike Banning, having survived 2 global terror events and saved the president twice. He now suffers from quite a lot of PTSD. And that is coupled with his wife wanting him to get a desk job again, but he can't do it because he just really wants to work in the field. And then during a fishing trip with President Morgan Freeman, the entire Secret Service is wiped out by a bunch of drones. The only people left alive are the president, who's now in a coma, and Mike Banning, who is temporarily in a coma, but then escapes the hospital when he discovers that he's essentially been set up to make it look like he's colluding with the Russians to take out the president and all that sort of thing. And so, and a story that would have been great had I cared more about the character. This is the first one is a character proving their worth. The second one is the same thing, but in a different location. And then the third one is now the character himself, because Banning's the titular angel, I guess. Angel has...
Yeah, because it mentions in the film, when they go public with the, Mike Banning is the number one suspect, because it seems like he's made a name for himself internationally being the center of these 2 fucking once-in-a-lifetime incidents.
Yeah.
And now it's and they say the president's guardian angel, something. They refer to him as that, and so it's I quite liked that he was he's the angel, because when the title was announced, everyone assumed it would be Air Force One.
Yeah, I did. I actually thought that's what it was till I watched the movie.
We talked about that on the podcast, because there was also a leaked poster that was Air Force One coming down, but it was just a fan thing, I think.
Okay, a fan thing. I can't imagine this movie has enough of a fan base to do shit like that.
Well, I mean, it's just a photo of a plane crash with Angel Has Fallen written on it, and then it got picked up as the official poster.
Because I've seen that poster and I just thought that was official. I got got by the fake news of the pop culture world. Fan art, notorious. But this is good sequeling, right? First one,
it's classic. Second one goes bigger, third one goes deeper.
It is deeper for the first 3 quarters. It's a lot less explosions and a lot more personal and intimate. He meets his dad, played by Nick Nolte. Well, he doesn't meet him. He finds him. He's like a recluse who's another kind of ex-soldier who now distrusts the government, mistrusts the government, doesn't trust the government, and then the last act he gets caught on purpose so that he can save the president. And because the plot is actually not set up by Russians, it's set up by war profiteering Americans who want a war to happen between America and Russia so that they get money out of it. And led by Tim Blake Nelson's vice president, and what's the other guy's name?
Danny Houston,
who is the friend of Mike Banning, who turns out to be the one who framed him.
Who, as soon as he shows up, you're like, okay, this guy's the bad guy.
Yeah. And it's, I didn't like any of these movies, but I thought this was the most interesting. This one showed the most thought.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for this, and I was like, I'm not going to see that, but that's kind of clever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because, I like the idea of, it's personal stakes. It's his characters being assassinated.
Yeah.
Not, and so it had half the budget of London Has Fallen, so that's why, as well, it's less explosion-y and, a lot more character-driven. But what do you reckon it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
It's in the 30s, I think.
what, a number?
39.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, my flatmate was like, he saw me watching it and looked it up and was like, this movie has 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I was like, ugh. It's like telling me who won the big game that I've taped, you know?
What is interesting, though, is looking at the audience score of these films.
He mentioned them as well.
Okay.
Well, he asked what is the science behind large audience scores compared to smaller critical scores.
Yeah. Well, so the first film has 66% audience score, which is like, it feels fair enough for the film, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The second one has 51%. The third one has 93% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep, because by the third one, it's got a fan base.
Yeah,
you know,
140,000 reviews.
Wow, holy
93%.
shit!
Yeah,
Jiminy Cricket.
All right, so we touched on this a little bit, not really, but so you mentioned President Asher and how he's all his like war profiteering and stuff, because you wanted to talk about what you think President Asher is like as a president, right? Because we never explicitly told their political party, right?
It's so intentional. It's so that you watch these movies and you go, yeah, he aligns with my beliefs. Because the first movie hinges completely on you being on the side of the president.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think it wants, as a left-leaning person, I think it wants me to think that the president is a Democrat. But after watching these movies, I don't. I think he's probably a Republican president. just because the especially after that second one is like, this does not feel
then,
like.
At the same time, it seems a lot less likely that the Republicans would like elect a hot young piece of ass like Aaron Eckhart,
that's very
and
true.
then have like a black president.
Well, maybe
Trumbull.
Trumbull isn't. Maybe Trumbull's Democrat.
I don't think there would ever be a circumstance where you would be vice president to someone and be in a different political party.
Is there not? Isn't that what kind of happened in New Zealand with Jacinda and Winston Peters?
But we have different political. Essentially, we needed more than one party to come together to form a government, and they made a deal. Said, "I'll be that party if I can be deputy prime minister."
Yeah. No, okay, no, good point. But that is a good point. That the
although
candidates...
you do get someone like Joe Biden, who's not very left leaning, but is a registered Democrat, and so maybe he is Trumbull as a Republican president, a fish on paper who actually leans probably more Democrat.
Yeah, I think so. What's confusing, and maybe it's intentional because it wants to be vague. Maybe it's like the presidents that are picked are Hollywood liberal picks for president, but their policies and the company they keep seem way more gun-toting Republican than anything else. I don't know. I guess my bias is against Republicans is just based around the attitudes and lines of dialogue spoken by Mike Banning and specifically London Has Fallen, though. The first one's not that great either.
Yeah, but it is. It's interesting because it does feel like Mike Banning is supposed to be America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it is Die Hard in the White House, but John McClane is the reason that the first Die Hard is so great is that John McClane is like he's a cop, but he's anybody. He's an everyman. He's cracking jokes. He's in over his head. Whereas Mike Banning
doesn't have shoes.
He's Mike Banning is trained for this exact scenario because he is America and he'll take whatever the fuck you can throw at him and he'll send you back to Fuckheadistan.
God, it's such a bad. I cannot believe. I told my flatmate this. I was like, and there's a line in London Has Fallen that is literally go back to Fuckheadistan. It's almost the go back is just as bad as the Fuckheadistan.
I think we'll send them back to
that's still bad. Any kind of language which insists that you are the entitled owner of, you know what I mean? Because that's why it's bad, because it's like an entitled thing to say to someone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I do think, like, refugees and immigration. But terrorists, like, they should stick to their own country.
No, for sure. But it's well, they shouldn't exist as opposed to stick to their own country because there's terrorists in every country. But the I think it's just that language like elicits those, suddenly the
yeah, it's the, like you say, it's the kind of thing that you'd be walking down the street and someone would yell from a car.
But I told my flatmate that that the line send him back to Fakhitistan is in London Has Fallen, and he was like, man, movies from like 10, 15 years ago, eh? And I was like, this movie's 2016. And he's like, what? Like, oh my God, it's actually shocking.
Yeah. It is
it feels like, do you remember when we watched Sex and the City 2? And it's like, this movie is so tone deaf. This is 6 years after Sex and the City 2, and it's about as tone deaf as that movie. It gives it a run for its money.
Those films have been compared to each other, eh? So, a few interesting things. Do you know the attack on the White House was based on interviews with former Secret Service who were asked how they would attack the White House if they had to?
That's a strange thing to make public record.
Yeah. It's like in what is Die Hard 3? The writer was like taken by the FBI and questioned because the like breaking into the gold reserve was like so accurate that they were like, you how did you do this? And it's like, these are actually our weaknesses and stuff like that. But then he's like, this was all in like a New York Times article. They were like, fuck. One thing that I found really interesting, and this is actually kind of leaning into dumb IMDb trivia, which is a segment we do because IMDb trivia is user generated. Anyone can submit it. So it leads to a lot of dumb things. Often it's just worded kind of stupidly. So, this is a really interesting tidbit. Almost by definition, the president of the United States cannot be held hostage. The moment he is overpowered and unable to function, he is no longer the president.
Wow, well, they sort of bring that up. Because...
Yeah, but it's just like the president's held hostage is like technically never a true statement.
Right.
And then it says, this is why the United States is a country of institutions and laws, not individuals. And it just feels like
that. Try again. Try criticizing us again, sweetie.
Yeah. Here's another one. So I've got two dumb IMDb pieces of trivia about the same line in the film. It is mentioned by Kang that it took 13 minutes to take the White House. Full stop. That was really unlucky. Full stop.
You're joking me. That's the dumbest piece of IMDb trivia I've ever heard.
And then it also says, after the takeover of the White House is complete, Kang says his team did it in 13 minutes. This could be a reference to the year the film was released, 2013.
I mean, maybe it was. Maybe the person who was writing this movie was like, all right, it took, when's this movie going to come out? 2013, all right. It took 13 minutes. Like, I do stuff like that, Like, I name my characters after... like go on my Facebook feed and just look at whoever's the first person to post and be like, all right, I guess this person's name is Michael. So maybe it's one of those things.
And so these are actually all on Olympus Has Fallen. There was nothing interesting on the other two. Actor Phil Austin, who plays the vice president in this film, bears a striking resemblance to current, since 2017, US Vice President Mike Pence. From evidence and interviews, it appears to just be a big coincidence.
So good, so dumb because
they planned that in 2013.
Yeah, Mike
that's
Pence.
The alternative.
I love it.
All right, now moving away from dumb IMDb trivia, but it's still an IMDb trivia entry. Do you think Morgan Freeman's a good actor?
I think Morgan Freeman has screen presence. I think the days are behind us when Morgan Freeman needs to be a good actor. I think that he has had enough iconic roles that could be played by no one else other than him. To be like, cool.
I think the screen presence is a good way of putting it, because like when he's delivering a speech or he's in the control room and he's talking in someone's comms, it's good. But then anytime there's like in the third film when there's a drone strike coming at him and he's just like pulling a shock face, it looks so bad. Like it's it's not believable in the slightest, and it's almost comical in its lack of expression. But so this is on Angel Has Fallen. Like with Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen, Morgan Freeman has openly admitted in interviews that he did this movie mainly for the money. As he explained for the previous two, money. This is asked, why did you do this for money? It's the third in a series. It pays better than the first one. I get to play the president again. I'm in a successful series. I'm working with a guy I really admire and like. It's perfect. When asked whether he still felt fire in his belly with regard to acting, he said, I enjoy it. I still enjoy it. I love making movies, but it's more like smoldering embers now. And I think that shows in his work.
I like that he said, I get to play the president again, even though it's kind of the first time he's been the president, is the third one.
Oh, so you're not accounting Deep Impact?
Oh, is that what he's talking? I thought he was talking about specifically within the Fallen.
Got him! Yeah, he did it. He did famously horrible AMA on Reddit.
Really?
Where it shattered people's illusions of Morgan Freeman. And this was kind of like the peak of when Reddit AMAs were just part of the publicity trail that every celebrity would do. And there was one, his verification photo was him asleep on a couch with, hi Reddit, I'm Morgan Freeman, ask me anything, on a piece of paper, which looked photoshopped onto his stomach. And all the answers, there was one that was like, hi Morgan, like, you're my favorite actor of all time, and your roles really inspire me. Like, when you're looking at scripts, what is it about roles that speak to you? And he just said, whatever makes me the most money. And it's like, brutally honest, and he only answered like 6 questions or something. But yeah, that's, check that out on the internet. Where all good Reddit AMAs are available.
Now, Richard, I know that you are emceeing this episode and you decide where we go next, but I'm sorry, dude, it's time for unsanctioned, useless statistics. Without your permission, we're jumping into useless statistics.
Well, I was about to do them, so...
So this, of course, is our segment, which, I don't know, part of the joke is where we place them in the episode now, because they were once up top, then they were poorly placed. I have a really fun one.
I am frothing to hear it.
All right, so the Fallen series shares some common DNA with the James Bond series, which we've already covered. So, for example, this is our second series this year where the plot has been to pit Russia and, I guess it's England in James Bond, but Russia and one of the, great Western powers against each other from a third party, because that's the plot of Angel Has Fallen and Thunderball? One of the James Bonds ones. We found out today that Gerard Butler is in Tomorrow Never Dies in the background of a shot, and you don't see him.
He has one line in his usual accent, very heavy Scottish accent. He's out of focus in the background.
But this is the big one. I'm pretty sure that the Fallen trilogy is our third Rick Yoon franchise. So he plays Kang, the North Korean villain in the first film, because he is also in the Fast and Furious where he plays Johnny Tran. But then he's also in Die Another Day. He's the guy with diamonds in his face in Die Another Day. And his plan in Die Another Day is the same plan in Olympus Has Fallen. His plan in both movies is to demilitarize the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea so that North Korea can take over South Korea. Like that's the villain's plan in both movies. One uses a giant satellite from space to buzzsaw a literal hole between the two sides. And in Olympus Has Fallen, it's just like, if you don't recall your military from the demilitarized zone, then we'll kill you.
Yeah, I actually had written down that it's our second franchise to have Rick Yoon play a North Korean terrorist after Die Another Day. But also
the fact that it's the same plan is like the secret sauce of that piece of trivia.
Another fun piece of useless statistics this is probably, I think there's one more example of it, but I'm not sure what it is. But this is at least our second franchise this year to have only its second film be on Netflix in New Zealand.
Right, because the Expendables 2.
Because the Expendables 2 and London Has Fallen are the only films in each franchise which are on New Zealand Netflix. Which is just a weird, like, why? But also, fun, useless statistic. This is our 100th episode of Film Franchise Fortnights.
Wow, that is fun.
So it's our because we've spoken a few times about reaching our 100th, but as you know, not every single episode covers only one franchise, and not every single franchise is covered in only one episode. So this is actually like, if you go back, count every episode that we've released, this is the 100th. Some of those episodes cover more than one franchise, and some, so
we've never done an episode that covered under one franchise. Although I guess that's what the multi-part franchise episodes would be. Huh.
Yeah. But so this is, if you count the Back to the Future, which we released over 3 episodes, I'm counting that as one episode because we forgot to mention it on the Expendables. That it was our 100th episode. If you count it as 3. So yeah, 100 episodes. Congratulations.
Hey, there you go.
I also found out today, the fun fact that we're months too late to share, because we've got a list of every single film we've done for the podcast. And I found out that A Very Harold and Kumar Christmas is the 420th film we've watched for this podcast.
So good. So funny. These things are bound to happen, but you never believe it when they do. What's our 69th? Is our 69th one like Nymphomaniac? That'd be imagine if our 420th was Harold and Kumar and our 69th one was Nymphomaniac.
I'm going to have to, let me just, one moment.
You should just be like, yeah, it is. Well done, AJ. You found another fun little... Because who's going to check?
So
really?
Obviously not, because we've done more than 30 films before doing Godzilla, and there's 31 films in that.
True.
So that's like almost 69 right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's have a look.
Sure, it'll be a Godzilla movie. But Godzilla was right after Nymphomaniac.
It's not going to be either. I need it.
I'm sorry.
Medea Goes to Jail was our 69th
fuck
film.
Yeah.
Very appropriate. Any other, while I've got the list up, any other fun numbers you want to know?
Well, how many films have we done?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Angel Has Fallen is the 456th film we've watched.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Does this include repeats? It wouldn't, would it?
No. Each film can only appear on the list once.
Okay.
And also, this actually doesn't include Atlantis, Square Pantis, or Truth or Square, because they're actually not movies. But those are from the early days of the podcasts when we were wrong about these things.
Wrong about a lot of things. Something which we'll be rectifying.
Oh,
in a few episodes.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
All right, what's next, Richard?
Okay, next, before we get on to continue the franchise, I want to talk about titles. We talk about titles a lot on this podcast. You're a big title boy.
God, I'm stuffed with titles. I've got titles coming out the wazoo.
So, AJ, what do you think of the titles of Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, and Angel Has Fallen?
They are really good. They're my favourite things about the
fucking love
trilogy.
them, eh? They're great.
What I love about... So, already... changing one word of a title is like my favorite titling scheme, so I already really like that. But then what I also like is that it's referring to a different thing. Like the changed word is a different thing. So the first one is a code name for a place. The second one is just a city. And the third one is referring to a person. And so I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And also, what's cool about Angel Has Fallen, as we said, is that it's not as literal as the other two, which is like this location has been compromised. The third one, Angel Has Fallen, referring to a person, is like is a frame job. So it's like, I don't know, it's a more poetic, idea.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I really like the titles as well.
It's a good design for a trilogy. I just wish they were better movies. I would love to see this design, this plot structure for a trilogy in a like this is what Spider-Man 3 should have been. Angel Has Fallen.
Well, hey, we've got another Spider-Man 3 coming out, and they do go overseas in the second one, so
they go to London in the second one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so continue the franchise. So in November of last year, Alan Siegel announced plans for a 4th, 5th, and 6th movie, which Gerard Butler is signed on to, as well as local language TV spin-offs. So apparently, because these films are quite popular around the world, they're going to do spin-offs where in different countries and they'll be all in the language of whatever country they're in.
It's so weird that these are popular overseas.
They'll introduce new characters which will tie into the films, apparently. So you got to watch, Los Olympus Has Fallen and Le Olympus Has Fallen.
Very nice. And Da Olympus Has Fallen.
And Olympus.
Why would they
fallen.
have that in front of them? The first one doesn't have, the original American one doesn't have that in front of us. So that's so strange that appeal so much to other countries when it feels like they're made for distinctly American audiences. I think, and I get that there's money involved, and as much as I don't really give a shit about the movies, I think it's a good trilogy. Like, it's wrapped up. He gets a job that at the end of the third one that like is where he needs to be in that time. You're also like with sequels like this, it's like it starts becoming increasingly less and less feasible that someone would be involved in all these major cataclysmic events over and over again.
Thing, yeah. And so it feels like I don't think the 4th one is going to be called X Has Fallen.
No,
I think they're gonna pivot. That's my pick. Olympus Has Fallen.
Wow. Len is in like a name? Is Len a name?
Yeah. It's another code name.
So I think that like the third one gets away with it because it's like because of the events of the first two, you are being targeted.
Yeah, like we've said, the third one's a clever idea.
I can take one coincidence. It's like episodes of the X-Files where the mystery finds Mulder and Scully instead of what it usually is them being like assigned to it. It always felt less genuine when it's like they've just happened to stumble upon this thing on their, their road trip. It's like, how often is that going to happen to someone though? So what the 4th one would need to be would be a terrorist attack is happening somewhere. We need to get the one man we know can deal with this, who's Mike Bannon, to get him out of trouble.
Yeah, I imagine he'll be in more of like a man in the chair role in this.
Oh, really?
Sequels. That's what, like, if I'm picking of where I think the franchise can go, it's just going to be too silly if the trouble keeps finding him.
Yeah.
But hey, like I don't think these are the kind of discussions they're having in the writers' room of the Fallen series.
They're saying, all right, what's the thing that has fallen? They've been stuck on that little thing for like 2 months trying to.
But I mean, hey, 2022 we'll maybe see another Fallen movie.
If one's a code name for a place, like a building, and one's a city, and one's referring to a person, do you think it needs to be like a number or something like that for the next one?
69 Has Fallen.
69 Has Fallen. Yes.
420 Has Fallen. So
Earth Has Fallen.
Do you have a good continuing franchise for me there, bud?
Yeah, it's real funny. You're gonna love it. It's timely too. Okay, so am I going first?
Yep.
Okay, so my continue the franchise. As of 2 hours ago, the leader of the National Party in New Zealand, Simon Bridges, was dethroned from his position and replaced because never have I seen a local public figure more inept at being a likable person than Simon Bridges. Yeah, I've seen it overseas, but every time Like the nicest person I know saw him come on the TV the other day, and she yelled, "Nobody likes you," because New Zealand at the moment is world renowned for being one of the best responses to the coronavirus pandemic. Everyone I know is so keen on keeping Jacinda Ardern as Prime Minister.
Yeah, it's because you live in an echo chamber.
It's because I live in an echo chamber, yeah. And Simon Bridges is like, his political strategy at every point has just been to criticize whatever the Prime Minister's doing, even if it's what he said she should have done 6 weeks earlier.
He takes credit for it,
yeah. Yeah. So, considering that he's now been dumped, my Continue the Franchise is called Beehive Has Fallen. Beehive being the name of the New Zealand version of the White House. What is the Beehive? So it's
our Parliament building.
Yeah. So Beehive Has Fallen, which I feel like it adds to the it fits the brand. And what it is it's actually a propaganda video made by Simon Bridges in response to getting kicked out of Parliament, kicked out of the leadership of National, and he's called it Beehive Has Fallen in an attempt to cash in on something which is, by the time of its release, quite like not a very current reference, which is something National have done plenty of times. They'll make it like a pop cultural reference to something that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
And there was a famous case of them using a song in one of their election campaigns which sounded a lot like "Lose Yourself" by Eminem. So much so that Eminem sued the New Zealand government for using something that sounded too much like "Lose Yourself." So that's my pitch, is a propaganda piece that Simon Bridges will think is real cool, and it's a parody of Olympus Has Fallen, and all the responses to it will be
parodying
like,
the second one as well.
Yeah. All the responses to it will be like, "I never saw this movie. What is this a reference to?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So very good. I love it. Just like you prophesized.
Thank you.
So my one is. This could just be the fourth one. So it's set. I want it to be set during an election year, and so because we never actually see the elections, and because obviously that would solidify the political leanings of the president. But set it during election year, and Mike Banning is is assigned to be security detail for. Let's call him a Trump-like presidential candidate who essentially, the party doesn't want to win, and keeps getting themselves into situations, and so he's essentially following him around. And it's like, there's assassination attempts on him, and Mike Banning's like, like it's very, and so it's very much about the political divide in America at the moment. And yeah, it would be smaller scale than the other ones, and it's about Gerard Butler's character, sort of his internal struggle with whether or not to keep saving him, and it's called Democracy Has Fallen.
Oh shit, I love it. I do love it. I love the idea of these movies, but if Trump was the president for them, because almost everything that the president does would either look hilarious if Trump was doing them, or just come off way worse. Like when in London Has Fallen, President Asher, who's played by Aaron Eckhart, is about to get beheaded on live TV, and he starts reciting the constant when you're sworn in, whatever it's, the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that what it is?
No, that's when you pledge allegiance to the flag. It's the presidential oath.
I solemnly swear. And for American audiences, I imagine it's supposed to feel quite powerful. for New Zealand audiences. It's like, oh Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
like this patriotism is too much. And just, but watching Aaron Eckhart do that, it's like, fuck yeah, it's fucking Two-Face. It's grizzled, sweaty, hot Aaron Eckhart.
It's Two-Face. It's the Batman villain, so you can get behind him. Whereas when it's someone like Trump,
but it's he's an attractive, rugged dude saying these things, and I can imagine being American and being like, fuck yeah, what a hero. But seeing Trump do that, I'd be like, oh my god, I can't watch Trump get beheaded.
There's no way Trump would be able to recite the oath of office from memory. I think like there was the thing because it cuts to your classic shots of people all around the world with their hands over their mouth panicking, and like I don't think that would be happening with if it was Trump.
There would be more of a conversation around it as opposed to like a grief-stricken nation or world.
Yeah. Okay, now just before we let you know what is coming up next week, we've got to do a newish segment we do called Ranking the Franchise. So new, in fact, that this is the second take of this because I forgot to do it and I just went on to the next part. But so where do you think on the list of 106 franchises we've covered, 107 now actually with Olympus Has Fallen, where do you think this belongs?
All right, let me just log into Letterboxd so I can be right there with you.
All right, so we ranked at the end of last year all the franchises we've done, and because Nymphomaniac 1 was one of, if not the best films we've watched on the podcast, and Nymphomaniac Volume 2 was the worst, we decided that's average. That's so now if a film is more good than bad, it goes above that, and if it's more bad than good, it goes below. And that's currently number 44. So, first off, AJ, does this belong above or below Nymphomaniac?
I think the heights of Nymphomaniac are infinitely more interesting than the heights of this.
This doesn't deserve to be that low, I don't think. Because even London Has Fallen, I was like, this is a reasonably easy watch. It's the kind of thing you would just see, like you would be staying at a hotel and they have Sky Movies and you got back from dinner and you put it on, you missed the first 20 minutes and you could still watch the rest of it and think it's fine.
I'm going to throw out a suggestion. You tell me what you think.
Yeah.
I think between American Pie and The Hobbit. So 50, it would be, make it 52nd.
52nd, okay. American Pie and The Hobbit. Okay, yep. So that's I could dig that.
Mm-hmm.
Not as good as Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle or The Santa Claus,
no.
But at least it's better than Bad Santa and Transformers.
Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah. All right, let's chuck it there. Why not?
Okay, let's do it.
This whole thing is arbitrary. Okay, so now it's time. We've been doing this for 4 years, AJ, for 100 episodes. Next time, we do Film Franchise Fortnights, it'll be the 8th of June, which is just 2 days shy of being 4 years to the day that we uploaded Lethal Weapon. So
it's confusing, isn't it, trying to mark the landstones? The milestones. The kidney stones of our podcast, because this is the 100th episode of Film Franchise Fortnights, but not the 100th franchise we've done, nor is it the 100th episode of the Cult Popture podcast we've done, nor is the anniversary episode the anniversary of the first ever Cult Popture podcast episode, which was
What's the anniversary of the first?
Film Franchise Fortnights.
Film Franchise Fortnights,
Yeah. So, yep.
So what have we done this week?
So last year, for our third anniversary of Film Franchise Fortnights, we were like, let's do a redux where we throw up on our Patreon, patreon.com/cultpopture.
We throw up on our patrons.
We throw up on it, and we go, hey, these are the franchises we covered in like our first year of the podcast. Which one do you want us to redo? Now that we're more experienced and better, I'll say it. Better podcasters than we were in 2016.
Not better people, though.
No, worse people. God. But and we ended up redoing Spider-Man which was a very complicated franchise to try and compartmentalize because of how many different canons and it's part of the MCU and we'd already done the MCU, and so it was very confusing way to figure out. I don't know, it felt like Spider-Man really broke or highlighted the flaws in the film franchise Fortnights formula. But we did it anyway. We redid that franchise. And for our 4th anniversary, we're doing it again. We're redoing it. We're reduxing the redux. So once again, we put up all of the...
so we did it differently this time, because last time we put up 14 franchises in our first year and just said vote for your favourite. Mm-hmm. But this time, we split them into 2. And so we did 2 polls of 7, and then the winners of those went up against each other in a final battle.
And it's worth noting that that Spider-Man was still included. We were prepared to do Spider-Man for a 3rd time. So the winner of the first poll was the Freddy vs. Jason, A Nightmare on Elm Street / Friday the 13th franchise. And the winner of the second poll was Back to the Future, the trilogy. And so we had our final poll between those 2 franchises, which felt right. They feel like the ones that desperately need a second
These
look.
are the ones that we decided we would do a redux because of. So Back to the Future is one that a lot of people said, I wish you hadn't covered that so early because the podcast was shit then. People tell me that every day.
They say it to my face then.
And then Freddy vs. Jason we had Freddy vs. Jason just 20 films long as one franchise on our list, but that was before we would split a franchise across multiple episodes. And
it's also a very short episode.
Yeah, it's under an hour. No, it's our first episode, which was over an hour long, but it's like an hour and 1 minute. And so for 20 films, that's about 3 minutes per film. This is 3 films I had fuck all to say about, and we talked for like almost an hour and a quarter. So Freddy vs. Jason and Back to the Future are the 2 ones, because either one we covered too early and one we feel like we covered incorrectly. So the winner by 2 votes, and the franchise we will be covering in 2 weeks from now is, drum roll please, Freddy vs. Jason, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th.
Damn, that's crazy. So what's the plan, Richard? Because we can't do this in one fortnight again. When we covered the MCU, we did it per phase. When we covered James Bond, we did it per actor. Godzilla, we did per era. And so it feels like we need to split this up into multiple weeks as well.
So that's exactly what we're going to do, AJ. So,
good.
What we're going to do is, coming at you 2 weeks from now, from this very second, we're going to be releasing a Friday the 13th one, which will take us up to Jason X, and then the following week, not the following fortnight, the following week, we will be uploading an episode on A Nightmare on Elm Street, which will go from the 1984 original up to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and then the following week, we will be releasing an episode on the 2 reboots, as well as Freddy vs. Jason, the crossover film. Mm-hmm. So this will, so essentially we're putting it in 3 weeks like that, so that when we come back after the reboots in 2 weeks after that, we haven't screwed up the schedule of what weeks a film franchise Fortnite comes out on.
Yeah.
And that we're not stretching it out for 6 weeks.
And look, when was the last time we did a iconic horror franchise? Was Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yep.
Later half of last year. I've missed it. They're often some of our best episodes, I think, and I'm looking forward to being able to do 3 in a row. Even though we've already covered these franchises before, I feel like the language of our podcasting is so different now.
So we'll give each film the time it deserves. So keep an eye out for our 5-hour podcast next week on in 2 weeks, on Friday the 13th.
Yep, and watch along with us. Why not? And you can tell us that you're watching along with us.
You've got time
on our Discord server, which there'll be a link to in the show notes, and as well as links to all our socials like Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. We're Cult Popture at all the places. There are 2 YouTube channels, one for our videos, which you should check out if you haven't, and one for our podcasts, which is what you're listening to right now. And yeah, you can also email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. Tell us what you think of the show. We will probably talk to you in the Discord if you're in there as well. God, I love, in the past, since the invention of the Discord server, the Cult Popture Discord server, it's really felt like our community feels like more of a tangible thing, you know, instead of just a comment on an episode. Now we're having conversations every day, and we did show and tell yesterday, which we're going to do every week in the Discord, and it's real fun. And so if you are a fan of the show but you've never joined the Discord, please join it, and also comment and be a part of it, because it's really awesome talking to everyone. So yeah, that's where to find us. Thank you so much for listening, everybody, and we will see you next week with an off-week episode on a topic that we're still figuring out.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you for listening to that episode, and welcome to our post-credits scene. This is a scene where a segment.
It's post.
A post,
huh?
Yep. Where
we'll mail it to you on the post.
Yep.
Send us your address and we'll send you this clip. But here's the catch. You won't know to send us your address unless you already have this clip.
Wow.
So it's impossible to hear it right now.
And yet, here we are.
If a podcaster records a podcast and no one gives a shit, is he still a white male?
Okay, mate. Come on, mate. Put down the beer, dude. Come on. So this is a segment where at the end of each episode we take a discussion prompt from one of our patrons over at patreon.com/cultpopture who has donated $5 or more. And this, we're starting to, everyone's coming back for seconds now, Richard, because frankly we've run out of patrons because we only have about 30, and so we're cycling through everyone because not everyone's answering. So that's another thing. If you are a $5 or more patron, please answer our messages. So we've got our second post-credit sequence from Brent Taylor, the MVP of Cult Popture fans, our Discord ambassador.
Jesus,
our Discord ambassador. It's self-appointed, but if he's going to do it, it means we don't have to do it.
He's got his own emoji on the Discord.
Yeah, there you go. Join our Discord, by the way. He asks...
For Brent from Texas...
We'll welcome you.
Emojis.
He asks a very simple question. What is your favourite and or the best black and white movie? What do you think?
My favourite is 12 Angry Men.
Fuck.
What's your favourite?
Yeah. It'd be between 12 Angry Men or... Casablanca. I love Casablanca.
I love 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, they're both pretty fucking good. All right, well that's the...
What's the best black and white movie we've watched for the podcast?
How many have we watched?
The Mummy.
Godzilla. Gogeta.
Yeah, Gogeta is probably my favourite that we've watched.
Yeah, it's certainly not Seven Samurai.
Ouch.
Or maybe it is. There's got to be some contemporary black and white movie that I'm not remembering we've watched.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's The Artist.
Yeah, it's Sin City. Does that count? Would you count Sin City as a black and white movie?
Yeah, and I'd probably count Schindler's List.
Okay, interesting threshold you've got here.
Would you count it?
I could understand not counting it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, because when you talk about a black and white movie, you're talking about films that did it out of necessity rather than a choice.
Which a cool example of that is actually Clerks. Was shot in the 90s, but out black and white out of necessity and not by choice. Which is crazy that there used to be a time when just shooting in black and white was, cheaper, more resourceful? Because now it's like black and white is just a filter in editing. So...
Yeah, I mean, I made a documentary at broadcasting school and the guy who we got to operate the second camera was fucking useless, and he didn't color balance it properly, and so we shot the interview from two angles, but they were like, you couldn't cut between them because one was like real fucking yellow or something, and so we just made them both in black and white, and it fixed the problem.
Black and white will do
so
that.
It was like, yeah, and so it was like the interview with the talent was black and white, and it actually worked out because we made it so that like because it was her like retelling a story, and so everything that was now was black and white, and everything that was like the past was in color. A reverse American History X.